Hi there, I'm Clarence Waldron. Welcome back to Black Muse. Tonight's guest, tonight's guest is a double delight. We have Bill Withers' wife here, Marcia, and their daughter, Kori Withers here, and they're going to talk about how they took the classic Grandma's Hands and turned it into a children's book. And they will be signing the book this Friday in New York City at Barnes & Noble. So let's just get started right now. Hey, y'all, how you doing?
Wonderful.
Fine. How are
Excellent.
you?
I am well, thank you. Thank you. So let's start at the very top. Whose idea was it to turn that song, Grandma's Hand, into a children's book? Beautiful idea.
It is a beautiful idea. Was a beautiful idea. It actually started from someone else. A publisher came to us. Actually, a publisher writer sent us a copy of his book. His name is Joel Harper, and he's part of the family of the Harper brothers, who are all musicians. Ben Harper, Joel, and another brother. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's an author. He writes children's books. A pretty noted author because he writes books about the environment and children's books about the environment. So he sent us a cold mailing of his book entitled Frankie Finds the Blues. And it was about a young man whose grandmother introduced him to blues music. She took him to a concert, introduced him to this art form that he didn't know about. And Joel sent that book to us, emailed us, told us who he was, and we were really delighted and happy to receive it and to know it was about grandmothers, the relationship of a grandson. And so a year later, he says, "Have you ever thought about putting that book, the lyrics of the song, in a children's book?" And both Bill and I were really excited about that, the possibility, because we really hadn't thought about Grandma's Hands. Of course, Lena and me, people had approached us about that before. So that's how it started. It was, his idea. He came to us, and eventually I got my daughter involved, and the three of us worked on this book based on the lyrics. Joel brought in a fabulous illustrator, Gregory Christie, who's an award-winning illustrator, and he was able to interpret the song on the page, and each one of those pages is an original work of art. It's not digital. It's hand-drawn,
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and we printed it eventually in the United States. We didn't go out, overseas. So it was, top quality paper and, printed it here. And so it's, it was a labor of love because we spent time, it was COVID and so forth and so on. But that's how it originated. That's how it originated. It was from Joel Harper.
Wow. Okay. And the song is such a great celebration of the woman who inspired Bill as a little kid. But also the message can be anyone who may have loved you or inspired you, a mother or brother. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the book, Dad was a kid who spoke about, being one of the smaller kids and having bullies, and he stuttered, and that was something that was, misunderstood and still is. And so I think especially kids in a situation where they are overweight or underweight or under height or over height, or they're just not the status quo and they can't hide it. that it can make them feel really isolated and also exposed and vulnerable. And they may have the means to fight back. That might not be a good idea, but having someone in your family or your neighborhood who can have a loving and supportive voice can really offset all those other voices if you trust that person.
Mm-hmm.
And you really feel that affection and that person has your best interest in heart. And I know that fortunately for so many young people, that person is a teacher. And we have wonderful male teachers, female teachers, young teachers, and old and in between who see something in a kid and encourage them. Hey, your friends aren't telling you this is what you're good at, but I'm telling you, you might not think much of it, but or that kid is staying after school and they say, hey, I see you working hard, you keep it up. And that happens with sports, the arts. And so, parents really are teachers fundamentally, and grandparents are, master teachers, because
Absolutely.
grandparents are teaching parents and they're teaching the young. And sometimes I think there's a trust that a young person can have in that grandparent figure, or even an older teacher or a pastor, an elder in the community, that you're thinking, well, this person has seen a lot. So if they're telling me I'm all right, they're an authority. So
Yeah.
it can really do something to give you, even if you can't broadcast it in your mind, you're like, grandma outranks them. So I'm going to hold on to
Absolutely.
that,
Yes.
And
Yes.
so for us, the victory of the song is that by blessing and grace and circumstance, luck, dad was able to honor that support and say, I'm a grown man and I'm thinking about my grandmother today. And I know I'm going to think about her for the rest of my life. So I can go ahead and plan to have this one for a while, and it's a liberating thing because so many of us lift ourselves up privately with the love that we have from our grandparents or teachers or people who have encouraged us, but we just don't get occasion to speak about it. So sometimes those voices become quieter than the ones around you that are making you feel bad. So when you have a song like this, and what we hope the book can do is to validate that and give kids and their parents, and I'm certainly a collector of children's books, because the art is beautiful and I love poetry. That it will be a chance for people to take those sacred feelings and give them that cherished space, and even expand them. So one of the things we like to see is people sharing stories about their grandparents, remembering those things, and even writing them down, whether you want to jot it down in the book or have a notebook that you do that. Some people love to write and write books and publish them themselves. Some people do that in a group. A lot of times, if you're involved in a group in the community, they may say we're taking submissions, that kind of thing. That we want people to understand that dad is a gifted poet for sure, but the idea that you want to honor a cherished loved one is available to everyone, and you can do that in whatever language is comfortable to you. So if the way to write something about your grandparent is to do it in Spanish, please.
Yeah. 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 This would be an ideal book for Mother's Day or Grandparents' Day and all that. Don't you agree?
Yes, because especially I know my mother, I don't out her, but sometimes you find yourself trying to give things to your parents, and dad would say the same thing sometimes, that you've given them, no, I don't need any more purses. And dad would say, no more clothes, don't get me any more tracksuits. And so certainly when you're trying to be original, to let people know that you're thinking about them and loving them, anything different, is always helpful. And sometimes you might know someone who just recently became a grandparent. Um, and gifting is certainly a big part of the children's book community, for sure. I mean, and building your own home library, that kind of thing. So that's what we hope for the book, is that Dad was big on things that are of value that oftentimes don't get the acknowledgement that they should have, and grandparents, really fall into that category. And we hope that people will walk away with a better feeling about themselves, and their experiences.
I like
And
to
that,
add one thing. I like to add
Sure.
one thing. It's not just for grandparents and grandchildren. It's for those who are those relationships that we have developed from older, younger, middle, younger, whatever. It's about the relationship, an older person, a younger person. It might not be your real grandparent, but it's a person that represents that bond. And that's what the book is for. It's not just a grandparent, but it's for a relationship. And we've seen the events that we've held so far. We've seen so many children and adults who have had those interesting, wonderful relationships with an aunt, someone in their church.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just, it's that bond. It's an intergenerational bond. That's what we hope that people will continue to feel and uplift, and make this book part of their library, their personal library, and gifting to those relationships, those friends, those sorority sisters, who are church members, anyone who has a relationship with between generations or family. That's what we hope.
Got it. Got it. So now what can we expect Friday, April 17th at Barnes & Noble in New York City? This is the one on Fifth Avenue, correct?
yes. We'll be signing the book. And in the past, when we do that, a lot of times people will come up with a few copies and they'll ask us, dedicate this to this person or that person. Sometimes people are there with their grandchildren and they're getting it for another friend that's a grandparent, and they're, and then sometimes people have personal stories where they either saw Dad in concert, or they have a connection to one of the songs that they want to share. So it's just really nice to get into the personal aspect of it, because Dad's charisma and his love for people, I think it was really a big drive for him making music and wanting to release it to the public for people to enjoy. And, we certainly are, regular civilians, as you would say, but for us to get to participate and to kind of step into his shoes in that way of just being around people, because Dad just loved talking to people, smiling, laughing, teasing, and young and old, and I think his inspiration in making music was to try to appeal to big groups of people. And at the same time, he didn't want to do it in like necessarily an impersonal setting. He liked to do it where you could see someone's face and talk to them and be real. He didn't want to be on a pedestal looking down at people, from a perch. He wanted to be eye to eye, knee to knee kind of thing, nose to nose. So that's really fun for us, to share in that. And also, we didn't get to meet Dad's grandmother. And it's a beautiful thing personally, as you can imagine, for me, and I'm sure for my brother, to have a way to connect to a relative that you didn't get to meet, and to know that they meant so much to your parent, because I was raised with Mom's mother, and who I had a very close relationship with. So it encourages me to celebrate that, and to celebrate all of the cousins that I have that I share that grandmother with, and all of our children, and to understand the love that can extend from one person. I mean, that's why they call it a family tree. When you're a branch in somebody else's trunk, it's really remarkable to see how someone can love multiple people. And then there's the special relationship, which my brother got, I think, with our grandmother, where you feel like you might be their favorite.
Uh-oh.
You know,
Uh-oh.
the firstborn. So my brother, is the firstborn. So he was like, grandma's mine. We're playing Scrabble. We're going to be doing this in the kitchen. We're going outside. I want to ask her all the questions I know about all her friends. And I think he felt like he knew her best. And so for dad to talk about, I feel like I was grandma's favorite, that there's something to be said to that of
Okay.
grandparents are unashamed in letting the grandchildren know, oh, you're just my favorite person. And let me tell you, so that's really good, because when you get to be an adult, people aren't just going to come out and say too many nice things about you because they don't know where this is going to lead, and all this kind of stuff. But grandparents will just let you know you're just wonderful.
Okay. I like that. I like that. This is for both of you. Can you name your favorite Bill Withers song? He had so many. Can you remember one right now that you just enjoy hearing?
Well, I mean, there's a lot I enjoy hearing. There's a lot
Yes.
of, I think one of my favorites is Lovely Day, because of the positivity and just the general joy, seeing the joy it brings to other people to sing it and hear it. That's one of my favorites. Of course, there's a lot others. I mean, he wrote this beautiful song called Whatever Happens, and that a lot of people don't know about, but it's really special to me. And there's a song called, entitled You Just Can't Smile It Away. So, there's a lot of personal songs that I love that he did, but I think one of my favorites is also a favorite of so many people in this world. Lovely Day.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Corey, how about you?
I think for me, it would probably be Lean on Me, um, because of the what that song means to people and to groups of people, because songwriters um, are ambitious, in what types of songs they want to write in different ways. And I know dad had, conscious ambition with his songwriting. So to see something, like the way that song has been able to connect with people over the world and bringing groups together, and young and old, for me feels like a fulfillment of his mission, and wouldn't be able to predict that would happen over time. He could have had no way of knowing if 30 years from then people would be lots of songs that sound like hymns and bringing people together, but for that one to be the one that people know, and for me as a kid to realize that that song belongs to people already, and in a way it feels like it always will, is really something remarkable, and then the spirit, just on a personal note, the spiritual sentiment of that song, the love involved in that song is something that I think really represents dad's, core values. And um, it's nice to have that connect with other people. Of course, we would still be proud of it, even if it wasn't a song that people knew or sang or was popular. We would say, "Oh, that's a beautiful song," So to have it be something that is a part of the
Lexicon.
consciousness, of people who may not even connect it to him as a person or his other music. They might not know that he sang
Mhm.
it, and he didn't have he kind of thought that was cool, like that made it mysterious. And that he talked about being a conduit. So it's like, okay, the source connected to the people, and so.
Yeah. What is it about Bill Withers' music that has already stood the test of time? What's the key to his longevity? I'll ask you, Corey, first, and then I'll ask your mother.
I will say, as much as we talk about Dad being loving and positive and charismatic, he did have aversions. He had strong aversions to stuff. And I think good artists do, artists with a strong perspective and voice have as much conscious sensitivity, I should say, to their distaste as to what they think is good. So you imagine a painter who's a good painter is as infuriated by a bad stroke as they are, enlivened when it's properly done. And Dad was that way about music. So music that didn't sound good to him would be like offensive to his ear and like piss him off a little bit, And so, and then on top of that, he had a very strong work ethic. And so I think like that, just that combination of the suffering, of the artist through difficult emotions to be able to write material, and then through a difficult business to be able to release it. And all of that, is very interesting. And I think that the way that it connects with people should be inspiring to the everyman, that that they can value things that are not so superficial. Because I think dad's attraction to what he thought was good was things that weren't cliche or trendy or gimmicky or novelty. And he was trying to strip away all of that to get to something more naturalistic without filter or augmenting it into spectacle or some high energy entertainment fake thing. He wanted to be real. And I think people are born and die, through time, and that the things that are real about us as humans keep coming up again and again. So when people are looking to music to connect to, there's going to be certain purity to hearing a guitar or a piano or a set of drums or somebody singing where you can understand what they're saying. And the melody is something you can remember and sing back, and music is very experimental. So there's going to be people doing all kinds of things where it's really fast or very loud or, and they're just exploring the scientific possibility. And Dad was like, I don't need all that crap. You know what I mean? I'm not interested in all this weird stuff that, that's not a good use of time. What's the bottom line? What's the point? And he wanted to look somebody in the eye with his writing and his singing and the production. So it's like, if I could look this song in the eye and see it and talk to it, then I'm happy with it. If you're going to play this all over the front of it, I can't see. Let's cut that tree out the way. And this thing is dropping down and, that's dropping water on me. I'm all wet. Get that out of here. So it's like a defense kind of thing in a way, like protecting clarity and simplicity. So he wasn't interested in showing all the runs that he could sing or his vocal dexterity, which certainly, he had. I think his one indulgence, Marcus Miller said trumpet players are like matadors. There can only be one, and they're all competitive about their highest note. And tenors are like that. So I think Dad's one indulgence was he was going to hold his best note. They call it the money note in the theater. And he got Lovely Day, got a bunch of songs, Hope She'll Be Happier, where he's like, woo, check me out, but he wasn't going to do that by using big words, using too many words in a song, a bunch of instrumental solos that show virtuosity, unnecessary embellishment, because he was like, yeah, that might feel good right now, but who's going to pick that up in 10 years and want to listen to that? And who that's been listening to music for 50 years isn't going to be confused, by where this is going. And obviously, as a composer, as a songwriter, he was experimenting in his records. But I think that I think the things I think if there's any luck that Dad had, it was that the things that he was naturally attracted to, philosophically, aesthetically, musically, were actually the core fundamental things that most human beings can understand. And I think you can teach young songwriters. He certainly tried to teach me to focus on that stuff and say, direct your writing and your energy to these types of thoughts, and you'll probably write better songs. I think that would be his mentorship. And it's hard to do because you have to really be honest with yourself about your sadness, your vulnerability, your mortality. I think I'm cool, but not that cool, and all those feelings, and say them out loud, and be slow enough to be able to suffer through. Okay, I'm not going to speed through this. I'm going to labor through what am I trying to say here, and make it rhyme, and then all this business, and that was his like gift or oddity, I think, as a creative spirit, was that he was always orienting back to that body of feelings. And his watching the news, reading the news, he always wanted to look at like the important things. And at the same time, he was just like a human being who wanted to sit with his wife and watch escapism TV and laugh, and a regular person.
Right.
But as an artist, his artistic attraction was to the fundamental weight of the human condition and true human emotions. And it's just not that many people who are attracted to that, in music or art, and I think that's was a good thing, because it turned out that he had a lot to say in that realm, and we cherish the writers that did that. I mean, we all have Beatles songs that are profound. Dad recorded Let It Be on that first album. But there's certain spaces, there's sacred music is of course invited to have great depth and spiritual reflection and words that bring people together. And that's the foundation of certainly the soul music genre, that Dad's writing in, and just popular music as well. But in secular music, in the popular music world of people walking around living life, dealing with all the trappings and temptations of worldly stuff, there's just not that many people that get to cut through that with something of real meaning. And that's when the record companies are best used, when you have songs like The Greatest Love of All that get to come out and people get to hear that. I Will Always Love You these are beautiful songs, and a person has many people that you feel I will always love you about in your family. Of course you think I will always love you, but that's what Dad was attracted to. I will always love you. 5 words. Think about the power of that, how much that says, how important that is, and that's a poet is in that invisible world of 5 words is building, a monument. Lean on Me is 3 words.
Yes. Yeah. Well, grandma's hands, 2 words. You never know. This, like you said, simple, less means more. You know what I mean? Yeah. Marcia, do you want to add to that?
Only Bill was in a genre, because he always talked about this. He was in a genre where you had to tell a story in 4 minutes. So it was the preciseness of thought. He was, he always considered himself what did he call it, Corey? A wordsmith, as a writer. But he had to, you mentioned the simplicity. I mean, that was really important to him, to be able to say things less, a thought in less words. He wrote a song called Hello Like Before, which he said nobody ever said that. It's a jazz uh, kind of a jazz standard,
Hmm.
so to speak.
Hmm.
But I ditto everything Kori said, and just want to make it a point that songwriting is telling a story in 4 minutes or five or three or what have you. And
Right.
Bill
Right.
did that really, really well. He did that really well, really, really well, and all the songs, he written that people can relate to. I think it's because of the story that is told and they can understand it and it's concise. So
And
these records are from 50 years ago, Clarence. You know that.
Exactly. Yeah.
1971, 2, 3, 75, so on. They're
Mhm.
50-year-old records.
Right.
And people still relate to them. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And new
Hmm.
generations are finding out about them. And that's one of the reasons why we were so happy to be able to that the record company found a way to get the albums out. They're limited edition vinyls,
Yeah.
but uh
So
so they're
all
not
nine of the
many.
albums, all
Yeah, they're
nine.
all 9 albums,
Okay.
all nine,
Which ones are behind
systematic.
you?
So the ones behind me, the first one that came out was in November, and it was the Making Music, Making Friends album that was released in 1975 through Columbia Records.
Okay.
And that album celebrated its 50th anniversary in November. And there are so many, like Hello Like Before is on that album. There's so many, beautiful songs on there that are kind of unsung. Not a lot of people know about that record. And Columbia Records wasn't quite sure how to deal with Bill Withers back, in that time. So, bringing it back out again and making it special, and hopefully Kori and friends will be performing some of the songs in this year. I hope we're hoping
Oh,
we'll be
great.
performing some of the songs, in intimate settings, to bring to bring it back alive and to show how beautiful the transition he made from Sussex Records, which was his first label. And
Yep.
thank God, they let him do right what he heard and what he felt. And the transition to this new music that he made in 1975, gorgeous, gorgeous song. So that, and then it's also the Still Bill Just As I Am, his debut, and Still Bill. Those three records have just been released, within the last 4 months. Live at Carnegie Hall will be released in June. And we
Mm.
had some great writers. Leo Sachs is an award-winning producer. He did wonderful liner notes. And Kevin Powell, who you probably are aware of, but he's
Of
a
course. Yeah.
poet. Yeah, Kevin has become a great friend of Kori and I, but he wrote the liner notes for Just As I Am and a fabulous poem for Still Bill.
Yeah.
And the liner notes are published through Wax Poetics, which is the magazine,
Mm.
um, the cultural magazine, that deals with music and events in our society and et cetera, et cetera. But yes, it's this for us. This is really exciting to be able to continue to expose, Bill's new fans, bring it to his old, bring this music back out for his old fans, and to keep people aware of his legacy and the music that he has made. And so that's why Kori and I are doing this, and just to share, his who he was, to share who
Hmm.
he was. Because there was a film in 2011 now that came out. You mentioned Still Bill, which Bill actually talked himself about, his experiences. And, it was out a while ago. And, we're hoping to bring that back out as well so that people can relate the music to the man.
Got it. Got it. Kori, before we leave, talk to me about your music and your career. Because I know you're an accomplished singer. You sang with your father and sang at Oprah Winfrey's luncheon years ago, the Legacy Luncheon. Talk about that. What's new with you?
yes, it's really wonderful because I feel like when I was, a teenager and things like this, I knew this day would come because dad was always I think, very encouraging of me as a songwriter, because I like to write songs. And I played the piano until I was maybe 17. And then he got me an acoustic guitar, Yamaha floor model, like $150. And then I had by then understood that James Taylor was a singer songwriter. So I understood that even though I knew Dad was uniquely gifted, that maybe other humans could write songs, because it was so magical to be able to. I wish other kids could feel this, to put your parents' record on and listen to it, and it's just there, like a gift, and this idea that came from him holding a guitar and strumming it. I understood that was the way in to making records. And so we hung there for a long time. And if somebody would ask Dad to sing, he didn't want to do it. He was like, Kori, please do this. And I'd be like, oh, great. And he'd work with me. We'd prep it. He's like, okay, yeah, hit this, go up a little bit. And it would just be bonding, just father-daughter bonding for us. And he was always wanting to make sure I had a keyboard so I could do my own recording. He always had the producer mentor piece. He always wanted to make sure your computer was up to date and your software and stuff like that. And then, but when I was younger, I was very restrained as a singer, where I had only sang at school and in organized settings, So now, fast forward to when I kind of get to work in-house, as we're digging into all of Dad's music and wanting to put it on stage and play it with not just great bands, but some of his friends. We got Ray Parker Jr. and Steve Jordan, and just the musicians that sound like the stuff I heard as a kid when Mom and Dad would go out. I was like, this is it. Sure. Yeah. So now it's like, okay, I've got that student bank of, you want to write songs. Who could ask for a better teacher to go through talking about that with you? Now you're talking about singing my whole 9 albums of songs. And what is that? What is it to be a singer in this time period, who's a woman, who's going to interpret these songs and make them personal to me, and then also loop in some talented men when there's certain songs that are really meant for men to deliver, and experience the whole band digging into the album cuts where they're like, what's this one? And we listen to it and they're like, I never heard this one. And I'm like, right, this one's great. And then we all play it and they're grooving on it. And I'm like, this is so fun, because we're just musicians in here. And then I go call mom, we did this one. And she's like, how did it go? And it's just very fun, because we feel like we're all still working for the coach. You know what I mean? That the records are coaching us, and to be able to play with people so much more experienced than I am is a gift, because that's how I come into music, with Dad, this guru, so it's more comfortable for me in a way to be in the room with masters like that than to be coming in like, okay, everybody, do what I say. And if you mess up, I'm going to tell you about it. I don't relate to that. I really don't. No. And when I saw Dad interact with musicians, he didn't interact that way. He was a storyteller. He would tell us, he'd be just talking, and it would seem like he was just talking about something that happened to him the other day. But at the end of it, he would lead into telling the bass player, like, so that's why you need to dig into that downbeat, brother. Okay. Because when she stepped on that corn, she fell all the way down, and you were like, oh, is that where this was going? And he was masterful like that, and a real encourager, a motivator, a inspiring person with musicians. So that's really, for me, that it's a shift from my younger days, was more about being a young songwriter. And I didn't think about the singing as much. I was like, well, you sing because you want people to hear your songs, because Dad was so into being a songwriter. So I thought that's the thing. And now I realize, that's true. But he was singing, he was writing songs for him, and he was a pretty phenomenal singer. So
Mhm.
there's a
Mhm.
lot to sing in here, you know,
Right.
and these are songs that we want real singers to sing,
Mhm.
you know. So that's really what it is being in service of how vocalists can interpret the songs over time. You know, that's what
Mhm.
publishers do. That's what we're supposed to do as the publishers of the book and of the music, is to encourage other artists to step into these songs and sing them. And so for me, I'm, you know, it's a little bit like singing demos, where I'm like, well, let me put them out here and let other musicians hear it. And then you want them to, some trumpet player to go do this song on his record instrumental. And then you want, you know, some big pop artist to go do it as a duet. And just kind of starting the conversation with a different layer of dad's work is what my thing is. And I'm convenient to the company because I do know all the songs. I
Right.
think.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know all the
Well,
songs.
most of them.
You know
I
what I
think
mean? So
so. I would
somebody
think
Yeah,
would
most
so.
have
of
to,
them.
yeah, somebody would
Yeah.
have to come
Yeah.
in and have done a lot of research, you know, to be able to just step on there and do that. And that's my goal. If I can get to be an elder or a teacher, is to feel like we can facilitate more young people who are so talented and love music, knowing that there's so much more Bill Withers than these 15 songs that you love. There is so much more for you to learn and interpret and experiment with and be inspired by, and that you can write, you know, beautiful things yourself, and that musicians who don't write a word, or you know, people who are not composers, who are just have dedicated their life to instruments, that these are compositions that we want you to know about. And you know, so I'm just singing them to get them heard.
Okay. Okay.
So to
Uh,
add to that,
yes.
Taj Mahal, you know, the blues singer Taj
Oh,
Mahal,
oh,
has
yeah.
recorded and released recently. His album will be out on May 1st.
Okay.
He's recorded and is releasing a previously unreleased Bill Withers song. The title is Time. That's also the title of his album, but
Oh,
it's a song that's never been heard before. And we, you know, it came to us a couple of years ago, and he recorded it. So Time is a previously unreleased song that, you know, Bill Withers wrote some time ago, and Taj Mahal is releasing it.
that's great.
So that's
That's
a,
great.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Our time is about up here. Anything else that
Okay.
you want to share? Anything else on your mind? You, Corey, anything on your mind? Or did we cover it
Yeah,
all?
we
No, thank
covered it
you
all.
for the
Just
questions. You know, thank you for the
encourage people to
questions.
look, and yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So before I let you go, because I really have enjoyed this conversation, I learned so much more about Bill Withers. I learned so much, and I really appreciate that. But before we close, I want to give a quick shout out, a little commercial, if I could, out to Howard Sandifer and his wife, Darlene Sandifer. They are the founders of the Chicago West Community Music Center on the west side of Chicago. And this whole video podcast was their idea. They said, let's have lively conversation with newsmakers such as yourself. So I thank them for this moment. And also I thank you. And before I go, my listeners, you know the drill. Please click like and subscribe. Please click like and subscribe. Thank you all. And thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank
Thank
it.
you.
you.